What is up, guys? Ncaa 31 here. A lot to talk about. Very busy week this past week in college football. Coaches getting fired, coaches retiring, players getting popped for PEDs and suspended, and a lot of showdown games came out of last week with some pretty interesting things, in my opinion, and then going into this week. You had a series of showdown games where I was playing in this one, Alabama versus Texas A&M. You had Notre Dame, USC in the wake of Sark getting himself canned. Michigan and Michigan State, Ohio State playing Penn State, who only had that one loss at Temple, which doesn't look that bad, all things considered. And you also had, last but not least, Florida and LSU. So a really jam-packed week of college football. I actually started today watching Iowa and Northwestern. Looks like Northwestern has finally kind of hit a wall, and um, Iowa. Iowa's one of those programs that every 4 or 5 years I have a year like this, and the schedule breaks right for them, and they have a big season. Still not really sold about how good they really are because they don't really play the big boys in the Big Ten. You look at their schedule. They played Wisconsin. They played Northwestern. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Michigan State. They got Nebraska, and they're a mess. They got Maryland, Indiana, Minnesota, Purdue. So they're going to have a big year. But we're not. We're probably not going to find out what they're about until the Big Ten championship game. Let me give a little plug to the American Athletic Conference. That's not a bad little league. It really isn't. It's like this mishmash of teams from the mishmashed old Big East football conference and Conference USA. And they're having a good year. Houston's a good program. Houston was always a good program at the CUSA level, as was Memphis. Temple's having a good year. East Carolina's usually a solid program at that level. And Navy's in that conference, and Navy's got a 4-1 record, and they're 2-0 in that conference. And Navy's a pretty decent program. You got Chad Morris at SMU trying to build that program up. That's not a bad league. It really isn't. And you also have Cincinnati that usually has decent teams. And you saw Ole Miss take one in the chin against Memphis. So kudos to them. I was really happy to see Texas beat Oklahoma last week. Charlie needed that victory. What I liked about that victory is that those kids played for him. Charlie will get guys to play for him, and he got those guys playing above their level. They came out flying around the field. Oklahoma wasn't quite ready to match the intensity, and away you go. And, that seems to be the type of game that Oklahoma always finds a way to lose. Ever since Bob Stoops won his only national title there, they just find a way to lose 1 or 2 games a year that they shouldn't. Still a lot of stuff to play out in the Big 12. I picked Oklahoma to win that conference because I just refuse to pick Baylor. And here's why I don't like Baylor. Let me just make this perfectly clear about Baylor, my dislike for them. Baylor is an Oregon impersonator. That's why I don't like them. Everything from their diva uniforms to their lack of commitment to defense, which they've taken to an almost trollish level now. I mean, they have a great offensive system. They're not like, Oregon in the fact that they're looking to spread you to run. I mean, they take it to an extreme as far as how far they want to spread you out. They have their receivers spread out damn near to the sideline. And I think they're a borderline impossible system to deal with because of that. When you factor in the wide hashes, the amount of speed they have out there, it's like a Jamaican track meet. They just have so much speed and so much space to work with based on how they scheme people that it's really, really difficult to deal with. But you still have big games in that conference to play out, and we'll see how it all shakes out toward the end. TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma, even Okie State, they all have to run through each other, and we'll see who's left standing at the end as far as the Big 12 goes. Stanford, UCLA played an important game. I mean, UCLA starting a true freshman at quarterback. That's going to catch up to you at some point. Looks like it has. And Stanford is really starting to mold into form, and they really frightened me from a Notre Dame perspective as far as keeping Notre Dame out of the playoffs. I expected USC to play well. I kind of feared that whole theory of a wounded animal is a dangerous animal. A shame what happened to Sarkeesian. I'm not gonna troll the guy. I mean, the guy's life just is a mess. I hope he gets well. You have to be a real scumbag to, you know, pile on a guy in that type of situation. Alcoholism is no joke. That can wreck your life. And the shame of it is that, his personal life is falling apart, and he also blew one of the great coaching gigs that you're ever going to find. He's never going to be able to replicate that. And, he's going to have to scrounge to put his career back on track. But first he's got to get his life together, and hopefully he can do that. But my Fighting Irish, they took care of business. Defensively, they scare me a little bit. They have these streaks where they give up really big plays. Sometimes they have, stretches of games where they look terrific. They'll put together 3 or 4 shutdown series in a row, but then they'll just give up these big plays in chunks. And I don't know why. I think sometimes Van Gorder gets a little bit too cute and exotic for his own good, and that causes blown assignments and big plays, because they'll be just cruising along, and then all of a sudden you see a guy running 15, 20 yards free through the secondary. It just makes no sense. It makes me wonder if they sometimes get more complicated for their own good. And that brings me to Alabama A&M. I thought that game was going to be closer. I thought A&M had an excellent chance of winning that game. But Kyle Allen didn't play well at all. And if your quarterback's going to turn the ball over multiple times against Alabama, and then you let Alabama just hammer you with a run game, you have no chance of beating them. And they had a chance to get back into the game thanks to some special teams plays and some miscues here and there. But I never really felt that Alabama was ever in danger in that game. A&M couldn't run it at all. They couldn't stop the run. And Kyle Allen isn't that type of elusive run-pass threat of spread QB that gives Bama fits. I was actually kind of disappointed on A&M defensively. I thought they'd do better than that. They had some athletes on defense. Now, that Miles Jarrett kid he's a freak of nature. The old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, retires. Great career, all-time great coach. Changed the college game forever. Restored Florida as a national power. Lots of SEC titles. Won a national title there. Made South Carolina a nationally relevant program, which is a beast of a job. Never won an SEC title there, but he always had them in the mix. Now he's free to go on TV and just troll to his heart's content. Michigan State. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Those players had to be sick to their stomach today. I don't know how those Michigan guys got an ounce of sleep last night. They had to have been just beside themselves at having lost that game the way they did. I mean, Harbaugh coaches his tail off, boy, because that team isn't that good. That quarterback stinks. I mean, they got some players here and there, but the fact that they were in that game the way they were, and the fact that they're doing as well as they are now, as quickly as they are, it's just a testament to how good of a coach Jim Harbaugh is. Just an excellent job. And when he starts getting players there, look out. Ohio State, Michigan is going to be an awful lot of fun for an awful long time, as long as those two are still there, Herb and Harbaugh. But gosh, that's just a sick way to lose a game. LSU at Florida. Leonard Fournette had a conversation with somebody the other day, asking, do you think Leonard Fournette as a running back is a good enough player to take in the top five, the top 10 in the draft? And I gotta say so. I mean, Todd Gurley would have gone top 10 if it wasn't for his knee, and Fournette's better. I mean, he is just a grown man playing college football. And if Brandon Harris can make plays, which I'm still not sold on, I don't see how they lose. The only way they lose is if a team is good enough to play, 8, 9, 10 in the box and say, hey, we're going to cover your receivers one-on-one all game long. Try to beat us. That's really it. Only team I can see doing that is Bama. But if Brandon Harris can make plays, they're going to run the table. I don't see how they don't. And as far as Florida goes, Treon Harris did better than I thought he would. And I think McElwain is going to do a good job there. And as far as Greer and his suspension is concerned, you got to be a complete dope to be getting popped for PEDs during the season. Why? Because, trust me when I tell you this, you can take whatever the hell you want the rest of the year. The NCAA doesn't test. I mean, you can just pump yourself full of anything that your heart desires all summer long. I mean, I've seen guys do it. I've seen guys, come back to campus in the fall and they have quads for biceps all of a sudden. We used to make jokes about guys going out to graze for lunch. They're on the sauce during the whole off season. I mean, you got to be just a complete fool to get popped in season. So, there you go. That's the old college football wrap up for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you all later. Peace.